Everyone, I'm Rochelle GP Mall from BPED 2D. Let's discuss respiratory system. Respiratory system. The respiratory system consists of the set of organs and tissues involved in the uptake of oxygen from the atmosphere and the release of carbon dioxide generated during aerobic respiration. This gas called breathing or external respiration. How does the respiratory system work? Organ specialized for breathing usually contains moist structure with large surface areas to allow diffusion of gases. They are also adapted to protect their organism from the invasion of pathogens along the surface. Respiratory system begins in the nose, continues to pharynx, larynx, leads to trachea, down to bronchioles into the lungs. Respiratory system is the network of organs and tissues that help your breath. This system helps your body to absorb oxygen from the air so your organ can work. It is also cleans waste gases such as carbon dioxide from your blood.
Good day everyone, I'm Aaron Joshua S. Isidro and I will discuss to you the respiration. First, what is respiration? Respiration in physiology, respiration is the movement of oxygen from the outside environment to the cells within tissues and the transport of carbon dioxide in the opposite direction. In simple term, respiration is the process of inhaling and exhaling. Respiration can also be described as the intake and absorption of oxygen from the surrounding environment, like plants and other living things in surrounding. Next is the transport of oxygen to individual cells of the body. And lastly, using oxygen to release energy in the form of adenosine triphosphate. There are types of respiration, the aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, classmates. I am April K. H. Lomboy, BPED 2D, and I'm going to report about the internal or tissue respiration. First, I am going to identify what are the function of human respiratory system. The function of human respiratory system is a series of organs responsible for taking oxygen and expelling carbon dioxide. The primary organs of the respiratory systems are the lungs, which carry out this exchange of gases as we breathe. So, yung human respiratory system ay yari sa maraming iba't ibang organs na kapag pinagsama-sama ay makakagawa sila ng common functions. Ang trabaho ng respiratory system ay kumuha ng oxygen galing sa hangin at itapon yung carbon dioxide na nasa katawan natin. May papakita akong pictures ng inhale and exhale. Kung nakikita nyo, yung inhale, sa part na nag-i-inhale ka, pinapasok mo yung hangin sa loob ng katawan mo. Next, pag exhale mo, binubuga mo naman palabas yung hangin. Tapos yung hangin is maraming elements or gases yan. Karamihan dyan is oxygen and nitrogen. Pero ang kailangan lang natin is oxygen. 20% lang ng hangin sa labas ng oxygen. Karamihan is iba't ibang mga klase ng gases. So pag exhale mo naman or natin ng hangin ay nilalabas natin yung carbon dioxide. Now, we are going to tackle about internal or tissue respiration. First, I will define what is internal or tissue respiration. It is a exchanges gases between bloodstream and body tissues. The bloodstream delivers oxygen to cells and remove waste carbon dioxide. Through internal respiration, another key function of respiratory system, air or oxygen enters the body through the nostril, where it is cleaned, moistened, and heated to the body temperature and passes. So, ang hangin daw is unang pumapasok sa ilong yan, susunod sa bibig din. So, kapag pumasok na yung hangin sa ilong, pupunta yan sa nasal cavity. First, I will define what is nasal cavity. Nasal cavity warms and moistens incoming air so it doesn't dry our sensitive lung cells that has to remain wet. So, sa nasal cavity daw is merong empty space dyan na ito ay mamasa-masa, parang tubig or sipon. May rason kung bakit basa yan. Kasi, ang purpose ng nasal cavity is kailangan niyang gawing basa or moist yung hangin na pumapasok sa ilong natin. Dahil kasi hindi pwedeng malagyan yung lungs natin ng tuyong hangin. Kaya kailangan basain nung nasal cavity yung pumapasok na hangin na nalalanghap natin. Tapos, kapag hindi basa yung hangin, syempre matutuyuan tayo or matutuyo yung lungs natin. Tapos, binabalot ito ng mucous membrane. Pag sinabi nating mucous membrane, ito ay basa or nakabalot siya sa bagay na malauhog. At syempre, yung nasal cavity din, 'di ba? Yung katawan natin is mainit. So, dumadaloy yung dugo. Tapos, pinapainit din niya yung hangin bago pumasok sa lungs natin. Next, in alveoli, the oxygen combines with the hemoglobin in the blood corpuscles to form oxyhemoglobin. This is carried away in the pulmonary vein to the heart and then distributed to all body parts of the body. When the blood reaches an active organ, oxyhemoglobin dissociates again, giving up its oxygen for respiration to produce energy. So, yung alveoli or alveoli, yung kaduluduluhan ng hangin. Yung hangin is pumupunta yun sa alveoli. Yun yung final destination or tinatawag na endpoint of respiratory system. Papakita ko yung picture ng alveoli. Nakikita nyo na merong blue or tapos red dyan na ugat. Pero, sabi dun sa video na napanood ko, red daw talaga yan. Pero pinapakita lang sa atin yung nagkikerry ng blood, tapos nagkikerry ng carbon dioxide. Next is, merong isang ugat na nagdadala ng dugo na may laman na ang oxygen. Yun yung red. Nakikita nyo yun yung red, yung nagdadala daw ng oxygen. Pabalik na sa katawan natin. At mayroong dugo na nagdadala ng carbon dioxide. Ibig sabihin, yung isa may dalang basura na kailangang itapon, which is carbon dioxide yon. Yung blue. Yung red naman is may dalang goods na i-distribute sa katawan natin. Kapag humihinga yung tao, yung alveoli is lumulobo. Kasi doon nagpupunta yung hangin, kaya lumalaki yung lungs natin. Kasi nai-inflate yung alveoli. Alveoli. The function of this is to exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide molecules and form the bloodstream. So, nakikita nyo dun sa may picture is merong dumadaloy yung dugo or dinadaanan ng dugo. Napapansin nyo na may violet at red na dugo, which is talagang red naman silang lahat. Pinapakita lang dito na yung bluish na dugo, yaan yung may dalang basura na carbon dioxide na itatapon. So, yung red, yaan yung nangunguha ng hangin, tinatransfer sa dugo. And then, yung dugo naman, na galing sa blue na ugat o deoxygenated blood o may laman na carbon dioxide, ipinapasa yon para itapon. So, kapag exhale natin, matatanggal yung carbon dioxide and ma-absorb natin yung oxygen. So, thank you. That's all.
Good day everyone, my name is Signatanyan Marquez from BPED 2D. I'm going to discuss now the respiratory system anatomy, the upper respiratory tract, and the lower respiratory tract. Now, I'm going to discuss now the upper respiratory tract. Paranasal structures like external nares, nasal cavity, and septum, nasal concave, nasal meteuses, olfactory epithelium, paranasal sinuses, and ciliated pseudostratified epithelium, and number 2, pharynx, internal nares, auditory tubes, oropharynx, and laryngopharynx. Now, I'm going to discuss now the external nares. So, what is external nares? External nares or nostril, opening slit into the nasal vestibule, a short passage that leads into the main nasal cavities. So, saan nga ba natin matatagpuan ng external nares? So, ang external nares ay located in this part. Diyan sa baba ng ilong natin, yung dalawang butas na pinagpapasukan ng dalawang hangin. Dito sa baba ng ilong. Next is septum. Septum is the cartilage in the nose that separates the nostril. So, yung septum is, eto yon, yung dalawang butas ng ilong natin. O tinatawag din siyang partition. Next is nasal cavity. What is nasal cavity? Nasal cavity is a large air-filled space above and behind the nose in the middle of the face. So, yung nasal cavity is, eto yon. Ito yung part na yan. Yan ang ating nasal cavity. Ayan. Yan ang nasal cavity. Next is the nasal concave. What is nasal concave? Nasal concave or turbinates are long, narrow, curved shelves of bone that protrude into the nasal cavity. So, yung nasal concave have three parts. The superior, middle, and inferior. So, yung three parts na yun ay matatagpuan dito. Ito ang superior concave, middle concave, at ito naman yung inferior concave. Next is nasal mutuses. So what is nasal mutuses? It is a narrow cavity located below the superior concave. And these nasal mutuses have three parts: the superior, middle, and inferior mutuses. So dito matatagpuan yung nasal mutuses, yung the superior, middle, inferior. Dito yung superior, ito sa mismong guhit na to, dito yung middle, at dito yung inferior, sa singit-singit ng nasal concave. Dun siya matatagpuan, sa guhit na to. Next one is the olfactory epithelium. It is a tissue inside the nasal cavity that is involved in smell. So, saan nga ba natin matatagpuan itong olfactory epithelium? Ito ay matatagpuan dito. Yan, dyan. So, yung olfactory epithelium, ito yung nakaka-detect na kung ano man yung naamoy natin, kung ito ba ay good smell or bad smell. Next is the paranasal sinuses, are air-filled extension of nasal cavity. There are three parts. The paranasal sinuses. First is the frontal sinuses, next is the ethmoid sinuses, and last is the maxilla sinuses. And this part are located, ito yung frontal sinuses. Ayan. Ito naman yung ethmoid sinuses. Tapos yung maxilla sinuses naman natin ay ito, yung nasa gilid ng ilong natin. Dito siya matatagpuan. Next one is the ciliated pseudostratified epithelium. It is the type of the respiratory epithelium found in linings of the trachea. So ito ay matatagpuan in this part. Yan. Diyan siya matatagpuan. Yan. Sa trachea. So, number 2 is pharynx or throat. Number 1 is the internal nares. Air enters the nasal cavity from the outside. So, saan nga ba matatagpuan natin yung internal nares? So, dito yon sa loob ng ilong, yung internal nares, sa loob ng ilong. Next is oropharynx, passage for food and air. So, yung oropharynx located dito, yan, diyan siya matatagpuan. So, yung oropharynx ay dinadaanan siya ng pagkain tsaka ng hangin. Pero yung pagkain na dadaan sa oropharynx ay diretso na sa ating esophagus. Pero yung hangin na yun ay may kasunod pa kasi yun. Next is the laryngopharynx. So, leads to another respiratory tract. So, yun na nga yun. Yung sa laryngopharynx, yung galing na hangin sa oropharynx ay didiretso na siya sa laryngopharynx. Siya na dito yun, sa part na to. Didiretso na sa laryngopharynx na siya na yung magdadala doon sa respiratory tract natin. And now I'm going to discuss the lower respiratory tract, the larynx, thyroid and cricoid cartilage, vocal box and hyoid, trachea, bronchi and other structures, lungs, right lung, 3 lobes, left lung, 2 lobes, consists of pleural membranes, bronchi, bronchioles, terminal bronchioles, smooth muscle within bronchial walls, alveolar ducts, alveolar sacs, and alveoli. Next is thyroid cartilage. So what is thyroid cartilage? It is the largest uppermost of 9 cartilage. So yung thyroid cartilage located dito. Yon. O mas kilala bilang Adam's apple. Yun ang thyroid cartilage. Next is cricoid cartilage. In the lower part of thyroid cartilage, it has a hyaline cartilage ring which fully encircles the trachea. So yung cricoid cartilage ay dito matatagpuan. Ito. Yung parang singsing sa ganito sa leeg natin. Next is trachea or windpipe. This part's located in inner part. Yung sa ganito, sa dibdib natin, yung parang tube. Yung parang pipe. Next is bronchi. What is bronchi? The large air passage that lead from the trachea to the lungs. So yun yung daanan ng hangin na papunta sa ating lungs. At yung hangin na yun, pagka dumaan na dito sa ating bronchi, ito ay warm na, mamasama-masa, at ito ay purify na o salang-sala na talaga na. So next is lungs. Saan nga ba natin matatagpuan yung lungs? Siyempre common na yun sa ating rib cage. So meron tayong right lungs and left lungs. So sa right lungs, have a 3 lobes lang. O yung tatlong parang sanga na malalaki na ganun. Tatlo. And sa left lang naman, have a 2 lobes lang. O dalawang sangang malalaki lang na ganun. Next is bronchioles. So what is bronchioles? Ito ay yung finer subdivision. O ito yung sanga-sanga sa loob ng lungs natin sa magkabila. Yung madaming parang ugat-ugat. Next is the alveolar ducts, alveolar sacs, and alveoli. So dito sa alveolar sacs contains of million alveoli. So dito nagaganap yung exchange of gases and carbon dioxide. Tapos sa alveoli naman, pag marami, yun nga yung tinatawag na alveoli. So pagka iisa lang naman, alveolus.
Good afternoon everyone. My name is Jerome F. Martin and I will be discussing about the pulmonary ventilation. So what is pulmonary ventilation? Pulmonary ventilation is commonly referred to as breathing. It is the process of air flowing into the lungs during inspiration and out of the lungs during expiration. And what is ventilation? Ventilation or breathing. It is the movement of air through the contacting passages between the atmosphere and our lungs. The air moves through the passages because of pressure gradient that produced by contraction of diaphragm and thoracic muscles. So, what is inspiration? Inspiration is commonly referred as inhalation. Inspiration is the process of taking air into the lungs. It is the active phase of ventilation. Why? Because it is a result of muscle contraction. During inspiration, the diaphragm contracts and the thoracic cavity increase in volume. So, paano ba dito? So, this is your diaphragm. Nagko-contract ang diaphragm and the thoracic cavity increases in volume. So, dun yung papasok na lolobo yung lungs natin. Pagkatapos nun, dun pa lang papasok yung hangin kasi sabi nga sa Boyle's Law na increase in volume, decrease in pressure, and decrease in volume and increase in pressure. So, pag increase ng volume, magdi-decrease yung pressure kasi magkakaroon ng hangin sa loob at mafe-feel ng hangin yung lungs. And kapag nag-decrease naman siya sa volume, nag-decrease na ganyan, yung pressure tataas kasi kailangan lumabas ng hangin. So, yung process na paglabas ng hangin, yun yung tinatawag nating expiration. So, kapag ganito, yung Boyle's Law, pinapatunayan niya na ang inspiration ay active process kasi dito po papasok yung pag nag-increase nga ng volume yung lungs natin, papasok yung air. So, that is the process of inspiration.
Hi, hello. My name is Jamel C. Moral, and now I will discuss to you the pulmonary ventilation expiration or exhalation. So, what is expiration in pulmonary ventilation? It is the process of letting air out of the lungs during the breathing cycle. During expiration, the relaxation of the diaphragm and elastic recoil of tissues decreases the thoracic volume and increases the intraalveolar pressure. Expiration pushes air out of the lungs. What gas is expired during pulmonary ventilation? This means that lungs must transfer sufficient oxygen from inspired air to arterial blood, so that ultimately tissue and cellular process may proceed without interference, and at the same time metabolically produced carbon dioxide must be removed from venous blood into the expired air. Why does air leave the lungs during expiration? In contrast, expiration is a passive process as the diaphragm and intercostal muscles relax. The lungs and thoracic tissue recoil and the volume of the lungs decreases. This causes the pressure within the lungs to increase above that of the atmosphere, causing air to leave the lungs.
Good day everyone, I am Jeremy Ramos from Piped Today, and now I'm going to discuss the acclimatization. And before of that, I'm going to discuss briefly the acute mountain sickness, especially in situations where the accent occurs too quickly. Traveling to areas of high altitude can cause AMS or acute mountain sickness. What is this? AMS is the mildest form and it's very common. The symptoms can feel like hangover, muscle ache, and headache. Hikers and adventurers who travel to high altitude can sometimes develop AMS or acute mountain sickness. Let's discuss the acclimatization. What is this? This is the process of adjustment that the respiratory system makes due to chronic exposure to high altitude, which means acclimatization are important to the person who have AMS or yung acute mountain sickness because body can adjust to accommodate the lower partial pressure of oxygen. What happened to the body when have a low partial pressure of oxygen at high altitude? It results in a lower oxygen saturation level of hemoglobin in the blood. That's why acclimatization are important because it helps to adjust the chronic exposure to high altitude. Because once the body can adjust to the lower partial pressure of oxygen and your body have acute mountain sickness, it causes lower saturation level of hemoglobin in the blood. And not only also in the oxygen saturation level, it also in the tissue levels of oxygen.
And because of the situation, the kidneys are stimulated to produce the hormone erythropoietin. Stimulates the production of erythropoietin are very important because they resulting in a greater number of circulating erythrocytes in an individual at high level altitude over a long period. In other words, stimulates the production of erythrocyte are the needed if one who have acute mountain sickness or AMS. Also, if they have more red blood cell, there is more hemoglobin to help transport the available oxygen, and there is low saturation of each hemoglobin molecule, and there will be more hemoglobin to represent and have more oxygen in the blood. This allows the person to partake in physical exertion without developing acute mountain sickness or the AMS.
Good day everyone, my name is Tibilin Pagibitan from Pogi. Now let's talk about the certain terms associated with pulmonary ventilations, include dyspnea, hypoxia, and hypercapnia. Dyspnea, or painful difficult breathing. When we say dyspnea, it is the medical terms for shortness of breath and sometimes described as an air hunger. It is uncomfortable feelings. Examples are asthma and heart failures. The second one is hypoxia, decreased oxygen delivery to tissue. When we say hypoxia, it is the conditions wherein the tissues are not oxygenated immediately, usually due to insufficient concentrations of oxygen in the blood. And last, hypercapnia, increased carbon dioxide level in blood. When we say hypercapnia, it is the conditions of having an abnormally high concentrations of carbon dioxide in the blood. Like for example, being overweight.